We're asking you, please, like the video. We understand everybody asks that. We're doing this for a reason. All you have to do is like it. That's all we're asking you to do. We're never asking you for money. We're not asking you for anything else. Just like the video. We're not going to monetize the channel, ever. It's not about that.
Yes, this channel wasn't created with the intention of making money. So this is not what we wanted to do. We're just trying to spread the word, and we want our videos to be seen by as many people as possible.
You're saving somebody's life.
It's totally up to you, but if you want to help and be your brother's keeper and not to let somebody get in trouble.
There you go. That's it. So that's all we're asking. Please, please like the videos. You have no idea. You have no idea how much good you'll be doing by doing that. That's all.
And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth. And he had 2 horns like a lamb. And he spoke as a dragon. And he exercises all the power of the first beast before him. And he causes the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. And he does great wonders, so that he makes fire come down from heaven on earth in the sight of men.
Look at that. Those are
one more time. And he does great wonders, so that he makes fire come down from heaven on earth in the sight of men. What do you guys think that is? If you're waiting on some supernatural fire to come out of heaven, you've been fooled. You're waiting for the wrong person. You are still a prisoner, just like I was, to the devil, to this world. If that is what you're waiting for. The only fire that's going to come down from heaven supernaturally is when God destroys this earth for the last time. That's it. Because he has had enough. He did not make people to do what we are. He did not make people to be so evil. You go right back and look in the book of Genesis, chapter 6, the same chapter that your false prophets and false teachers have told all of us is concerning alien hybrids and Nephilim and all of that. That is not the reason God destroyed the earth. That was a consequence of what the problem was on the earth. You go look and you read it again carefully. And you read why God destroyed the earth. You know why he destroyed the earth? Because men's hearts, every last thought out of them, were nothing but evil. Period. When Jesus said it would be as the days of Noah, that's what he's talking about. And you don't need to do any more looking than YouTube or any of the other social networks to find this out for yourself. People are evil. All of us. There are none of us that are good. Period. That's why he destroyed the earth. And it tells you in Genesis, he destroyed it because it grieved his heart. God is love. And he destroyed this earth because man's hearts were so wicked. And he deceives them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the first beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth, that they should make an image to the beast, which had the wound by a sword and did live. And he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. And he causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their forehead, and that no man might buy or sell save that he had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. And here is wisdom. Let him that have understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. That first beast had 10 horns. You're already told what those 10 horns are. They're kings. So what would 2 more horns on this second beast be? It would be 2 more kings. But this is like a lamb. That means they're like saviors. They're coming. This is the false prophet coming as saviors.
Where are we?
At St. Nicholas, I don't know how do you call it. Is it cathedral? St. Nicholas Basilica? Or
They call it the Church of St. Nicholas.
Yeah.
Basilica? Yeah. And what is that again? That's those double X's they're telling us the Ephesus will. Where did we first see those in?
At the synagogue.
Synagogue where? In Sardis. Yeah. The love of money is the root of all evil, and that's where those double X's that they're telling you or something else, that's where it starts, on the back of coins. It's on the back of all the Hasmonean coins. It's 2 X's. It means 2 marks, and the mark is referring to the marks on the forehead in Ezekiel 9:4. That was the Jewish letter Tav, which was an X. Yeah, later became a T. But prior to that had been an X out of Egypt. And the mark that was placed on the foreheads of people, basically exempting them from judgment, right? The double marks was a sign during the Maccabean era. It was a sign to messiahs that they believed were coming. That's why it was on the back of those coins. It was the 8-parted symbol. 2 X's. 2 marks. Yeah. The scary thing is that there are people that can read the Bible and actually think that this building is something important. That's what's scary. Like, I don't get that. Do you?
No.
There's nothing here accidental. This is the sign of the people conquerors. That's what the Nicolaitan sign were. 2 marks, 2 X's. There's no doubt. What they're calling crosses, it's just a Jewish mark, the Tav. And it's on the back of those Hasmonean coins again. The sign of the priest and the king, the Messiah.
And look at the other side. This.
Oh yeah, there you go.
That.
Well, look at what it's identical to what you see on the floor in Sardis. Do you understand? At the synagogue there. Look at this. You see, there it is again. Again, that's that Masonic sign. This is on the Church of St. Nicholas. These are who we're trying to tell you guys. These are who the people conquerors are. That is not a cross like that's not what they're telling you that's there for. That is a Jewish mark. It's the double mark sign of Messiah, i.e. them conquer. Do you realize what that is? Anna, that's an anchor.
Anchor, right.
Anna, point at that again.
Do you see this?
That's an anchor. Do you realize what you're seeing here? Anna, that's the double crosses. On the front of the coin of Janus is an anchor. Look, they even say, right here, marble plate with the relief of the anchor-shaped cross is the best evidence. St. Nicholas is a protector saint for sailors. Anna, who are the Phoenicians?
They were sailors.
They were sailors, right? See, again, we're trying to point something out to you. God told them that if they didn't drive them out, that they would be a thorn in their side always. This is the proof right there. That anchor and those double X's are on the front and back of the coin.
What that X has to do, it has to do with the Bible. We've been traveling around Turkey in the month of December here to put together some more information for you guys. what Jesus Christ has shown us, what God in the Bible has told us, yeah, and through faith in Him, through the Spirit of truth, and that's what the Holy Ghost is. He's led us along this way to show us what the messages in the book of Revelation meant. They're there for a reason. They have very important reasons. Maybe some of you listening to this will understand these already. But what we're doing is, as my wife likes to say, is we're trying to put together a piece of a puzzle. These people that have done a lot to confuse everybody and muddy the waters with what's actually going on. Over the past 2,000 years, they've done a pretty good job at breaking it up. The good thing we can say is this: as much as they've lied, as much as they've built with their hands, as much doctrines as they've taught themselves, the words pretty much have never changed. If you've got access to a King James Bible and you're willing to do a little bit of studying, and you've got access now online to the Greek translations, the few things in the King James Bible that they've taken liberty to translate in their own, we'll just say in their own interpretation of the way a word should be written. If it sounds like it's confusing or conflicting, just go take a look at it in the Greek and see what it actually says there. The bottom line is, it's all there. The scriptures can't be broken. They're truth, just like Jesus Christ said. That's the message God's left us the whole time. It's still here. He's in complete control. Even if these other people have tried to lie to everybody about what it actually says, the bottom line is the Bible's true. It's still here. And even if they teach you something wrong about it, it doesn't change the fact that it's true. Anyways, the Bible is 100% true. That's what I'm wanting to tell you guys. You don't need me to teach you any of this stuff. You can be taught it yourself. Have faith in God, faith in Jesus Christ, that He's real and that He's not in your imagination. Don't have faith in lies. Again, stay away from these other people that are telling you lies. Once you know something's a lie, it's a wrong for you to engage in it anymore. These pictures they show you are Jesus Christ, it's a lie. These things that they tell you are crosses, it's a lie. Once you know these things are lies and you know this isn't what or who He was, go away from it. Yeah? Once you understand what a synagogue really is, i.e. it's a church building, a church house, go away from it. Don't have anything to do with stuff like that anymore. Matter of fact, you call it out and you tell the other people that are there that they've been fooled too. That's taking the water of life of Jesus Christ to them. You're saving their lives. If they repent from this stuff, they won't take the mark of the beast. They won't listen to what people like this man, what his computer will tell them next year. They won't do that. Yeah? They'll trust the people who repent. You'll save their lives. That's what this is all about. Jesus Christ and money are two things that do not go together. I'm going to warn you now. Anybody asking you for money is not at this point, with what's going on in the world, is not a servant of Jesus Christ. I don't care what they say. If they're coming to you, if they're asking you to give them money, they are not serving Him. The reason I'm telling you this now for sure is because there's no point in hanging on to money anymore. It won't be worth anything very soon. This world won't be here very long. If they're claiming to be servants of Jesus Christ and they're telling you they need money, they're blind. They don't realize what's happening, and you need to run as far away as you can from them. Okay, that will you're looking at there, that they're telling you is the ichthus will. It's an acrostic. An acrostic is a poem or other word composition in which the first letter or syllable or word of each new line or paragraph or of the recurring feature in the text spells out a word, message, or the alphabet. The term comes from the French acrostiche, from the post-classical Latin acrostiche, and from the Koine Greek akrostike. Some of you may be familiar with this in the Bible code. That was something really popular back in the 90s and the early 2000s, was computer programs they designed that they would go through the Bible and look for words spelled out a certain way. This is all man stuff. Relatively simple acrostics may merely spell out letters of the alphabet in order. Such an acrostic may be called an alphabetical acrostic. Yeah. These acrostics occur in the first 4 of the 5 chapters that make up the Book of Lamentations. In the praise of the good wife in Proverbs 31:10 through 31 and Psalms 9:10, 25, 34, 37, 111, 112, 119, 145 of the Hebrew Bible. Notable among the acrostic psalms is the long Psalm 119, which typically is printed in subsections named after the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet. Each section consisting of 8 verses, each of which begins with the same letter of the alphabet, and the entire psalm consisting of 22 times 8, 176 verses. Psalms 145, which is recited 3 times a day in Jewish services. Some acrostic psalms are technically imperfect. Anyways, this has a long history. Where they do mention this is a very famous acrostic. A well-known acrostic in Greek is for the phrase Jesus Christ, God's Son, Savior, the initial letters of which spell out ichthus, which means fish. That's what they tell you, right? That's what that will is. They're telling you that's what that will represents. I'm telling you there's more to this story than you think, and it's got nothing to do with the Jesus Christ of the Bible, but it's got everything to do with their Second Temple religion and these types of games that they would be playing. That acrostic first occurs not in a will. They're telling you that's what the will meant. There's no wills there in Ephesus, or from what we've seen in Sardis at the synagogue that has ichthus inside the will. That shows up later. The wills, however, are everywhere. And the wills do have something to do with Jesus Christ, just not the real Jesus Christ. Those wills have to do with these people using Jesus Christ to turn around and conquer the rest of the world at that time. In other words, they used a counterfeit version, or they brought in a different Jesus and a different gospel, exactly as Paul warned people about, and they came in and they conquered the pagan world around them with this counterfeit gospel. And that ichthus will is the sign of them conquering it. That acrostic, and where you find that first, it's in the Sibylline oracles. Just so you understand, a Sibyl in ancient Greece was a woman who would be possessed with a familiar spirit. And again, this is nothing supernatural. When you understand that the Apostle Paul cast one of these spirits out of the slave girl that had brought all of the money to the people that owned her there, it says the girl had a spirit of divination, and she made a bunch of money. When you look in the Greek, the word that's used there is she had the spirit of Python. Python, this is not something literally supernatural. Python, a spirit of Python, the original readers of the Greek would have understood that this was a lady, who was a Sibyl. She was a Sibyl for Apollo, because that's what the spirit of Python was. It was a spirit associated with the Sibyls, the women who could go into these trances and see these things for the priest Apollo. If you read Plutarch, you'll find out Plutarch himself was a temple priest for Apollo, and he tells you these Sibyls practiced what we would today know as ventriloquism. They were experts at throwing their voices, and that's what they were trained to do. You can see plenty of people that think they go into trances today. They're just changing their voice, but the people would believe them. These Sibyls, by the way, Some of them would actually die because they would go into these frenzied states, which evidence seems to suggest that they were taking drugs, basically some type of drug that was causing them to have these hallucinations and these visions. And the people would record what these sibyls would say. Apollo's sibyls that had the spirit of Python would sit on stools. They would sit on tripods, basically, is what it was, three-legged tripods, and they would give these oracles, right? So that's what an oracle was, or a sibyl, yeah, at that time. So you need to keep in mind that this has a very pagan, very demonic in the most literal sense. And what I mean by that is the biblical definition of it, i.e. something earthly. It's something from man's imagination. It's not true. There's no supernatural power to any of this. But this is where that acrostic comes from. I want to warn you guys now. The reason I'm doing this is because we're commanded to cast this, and the Apostle Paul warned us. In 1 Corinthians, he warned everybody and said, I would not have you, have fellowship with demons. You can't drink from the cup of Christ and the cup of demons, i.e., you can't have anything to do with imaginary stuff that's lies and drag that into Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ is true. God's true. And if you mix him with things like this, you're destroying the message. You've turned the truth into a lie. That's what that ichthus will is. It has a very awful history, and it has to do with Second Temple Judaism and their belief in two messiahs coming and conquering the world, and they were going to conquer it through themselves, basically. That's what that ichthus really means, and this acrostic has everything to do with it and how they went about conquering the world. Anyways, the Sibylline oracles, sometimes so-called the pseudo-Sibylline oracles, are a collection of oracular utterances written in Greek hexameters ascribed to the Sibyls, prophetesses who uttered divine revelations in a frenzied state. 14 books and 8 fragments of the Sibylline oracles survive, in an edition of the 6th or 7th century AD. They are not to be confused with the original Sibylline books of the ancient Etruscans and Romans, which were burned by the order of Roman General Flavius Stilicho in the 4th century AD. Instead, the text, the Sibylline oracles, is an odd pastiche of Hellenistic, that means Greek, Roman mythology interspersed with Jewish, Gnostic, and early Christian legend. Right there's the key. This sounds like everything that we would associate with the modern habits of, for example, Talmudic Judaism and the Kabbalah, right? That's basically what this type of stuff was. So it was a mix of Greek, Roman mythology, and blended with Jewish, Gnostic, and early Christian legends, i.e. it was all lies, right? The Sibylline oracles are a valuable source for information about classical mythology and early first millennium Gnostic, Hellenistic, Jewish, and Christian beliefs. Some apocalyptic passages scattered throughout seem to foreshadow themes of the book of Revelation. Yep, of course they do, because the book of Revelation is written metaphorically. John knew what he was doing. Jesus Christ, when he gave this to John, gave it to him for a reason. These beliefs in eternal lakes of fire and all of this other stuff, that's found in Zoroastrianism. It's found in a lot of the, what you would call millennial beliefs in Second Temple Judaism. There's the book of Revelation is true. It's just not the way they were teaching it at the time. There's no supernatural devil. That's what we're trying to point out here. I'm trying to make you understand. But nevertheless, some apocalyptic passages scattered throughout seem to foreshadow themes of the book of Revelation and other apocalyptic literature. The oracles have undergone extensive editing, rewriting, and redaction as they came to be exploited in wider circles. One passage, and this is where what they're telling you, that ichthus will, that's what that will means. They're telling you that this is where it comes from. It comes from the Sibylline oracles. One passage has an acrostic, that code word, spelling out a Christian code phrase with the first letters of successive lines. First, Christians wouldn't have been hiding. Real Christians didn't hide from anybody. You don't hide from anybody. That's the whole point. Jesus Christ said, if you deny me before men, I will deny you before the Father. So we wouldn't hide if somebody asked us that, right? You wouldn't need a secret will code word to, hide out in the open. Second Temple Jews that were using Jesus Christ's name to conquer the pagans through a false counterfeit version of Christianity, they would have needed signs. They would have needed secret codes just like this. And the fact that it's in this collection of mythology here has everything to do with Second Temple Judaism. That's what the Book of Jubilees is. That's what their version of the Book of Enoch is. That's not the Enoch that Jude is referencing. It's clearly not. Their books that they collected their books that they put together during the Second Temple period that taught supernatural devils, supernatural demons, all of these other Greek god things, this is all lies. That's why Jesus Christ told them, the greatest thing that they needed to hear was, "Hear ye, O Israel, your Lord is one Lord," or your God is one God, right? There's no others, period. And the games they play, well, no, it's a fallen angel. The fallen angels were destroyed. That's what Jude tells us, period. Jude tells us they're destroyed. Peter tells us they're destroyed. There's no fallen angels flying around anymore above in the universe. What the fallen angels are, what they came from, that's a whole separate issue. Yeah, they're still around. And I understand, and the people that understand that Jesus Christ has shown the truth to understands what that means. Anyways, one passage has an acrostic spelling out a Christian code phrase with the first letters of the successive lines. So, this is what the book was, yeah? The so-called Sibylline oracles are couched in classical hexameter verses. The contents are of the most varied character and of the most part contain references to peoples, kingdoms, cities, rulers, temples, etc. It is futile to attempt to read in any order into their plan or any connected theme. Patrick Healy of the Catholic Encyclopedia suggests that their present arrangement represents a caprice of different owners or collectors who brought them together from various sources. Though there are occasionally verses which are truly poetic and sublime, the general character of the Sibylline oracles is mediocre. The order in which the books are numbered does not represent their relative antiquity, nor has the most searching criticism been able to accurately determine how much is Christian and how much is Jewish. Again, nobody can figure any of this out because it's all Mystery Babylon. That's what Second Temple Judaism is. Healy continues, Book 4 is generally considered to embody the oldest portion of the oracles, and while many of the older critics saw in it elements that were considered to be Christian, it is now looked on as completely Jewish. Book 5 has given rise to many divergent opinions, some claiming it as Jewish, others as a Christian Jew, and others as being largely interpolated by a Christian. It contains so little that can be considered Christian that it can safely be set down as Jewish. Books 6 and 7 are admittedly of Christian origin. Some authors, Mendelssohn and Alexander and Grefkin, describe Book 6 as a heretical hymn, but this contention has no evidence in its favor. It dates most probably from the 3rd century AD, i.e., right around the time you started seeing these marks and these wills showing up in places. Books 1 and 2 are regarded as Christian revision of a Jewish original. Books 8 offers a peculiar difficulties. First 216, this is interesting, and this is where that acrostic for ichthus is first discovered in history, because it's not written on those wills. That's the whole point. The wills they're telling you were secrets for ichthus. They're saying ichthus is found in this Sibylline Oracle book, a collection of pagan, heathen, Gnostic, Jewish fairy tales. This is why Paul warned people not to give heed or give any weight to Jewish fables, because this is what the stuff is. It's lies. It's doctrines of demons, literally. Made up stuff. Book 8 offers peculiar difficulties. The first 216 verses are most likely the work of a 2nd century AD Jew, while the latter part, verses 217 through 500, beginning with the acrostic on the symbolic Christian word ichthus, is undoubtedly Christian and dates most probably from the 3rd century AD. Yeah? That's the code right there. They're telling you that book 8 goes, the first 216 verses, that it's the one book out of all of the books in that Sibylline Oracles. Yeah, book 8 is the one that is difficult to understand because the first 216 verses are the work of a 2nd century Jew, while they're saying the latter part appears to be, verse 217 through 500, the work of a 3rd century Christian, beginning with an acrostic on the symbolic Christian word ichthus, i.e. that will they're telling you is what the ichthus will is. What I'm going to tell you is just like the founding fathers in the United States used secret codes, to communicate between the battle lines, and around the British, because at that time, the average British soldier, they couldn't read. So if somebody caught a secret message, written down, the soldiers couldn't read to begin with. And then if it was hidden within code words, it was even more difficult to decipher, right? This is a war, is what I'm getting at, i.e. conquering. Ichthus being an acrostic in this Jewish fairy tale book, mixed beliefs of mixed legends from Greek and Roman and Jewish, which would have been Babylonian. This is what Mystery Babylon is, doctrines, in this Sibylline oracle here. It beginning there with that word ichthus as an acrostic is them letting each other know that it's their handiwork when they see these wills, that it's basically a Second Temple Jew pretending to be a Christian and going teaching doctrines of demons exactly as the Apostle Paul warned they would do, basically bringing in, from the best of my ability to decipher it all, a type of Orpheism. That was popular at that time, and teaching that instead of true Christianity, teaching people that it's about the spirit world to come rather than the world to come in the sense of this universe being resurrected from the dead. This symbol that they're telling you is, found in this Sibylline oracle in the acrostic of ichthus, is the sign of the Nicolaitan. It's the double marks. That's what they were in the Jewish alphabet, Tavs, 2 X's at that time in Paleo Hebrew, and it goes all the way back to Egypt with the hieroglyph X. These 2 X's are what the letter Tav is, and it's what was used in Ezekiel 9:4 to represent the mark put on the forehead. That's what this is, and it was a mark, an exemption from judgment, i.e. meaning they had conquered something and, it's exempt from judgment. That ichthus will is 2 X's. It was a Second Temple belief at that time that there would be 2 Messiahs coming. And once the Hasmoneans came in, some of the Hasmoneans started to do away with that. They started claiming themselves, some of these Hasmonean kings, that they fulfilled both the priest and the king role. But nevertheless, from Second Temple tradition, they believed it was 2 Messiahs that would come, and it was represented with those 2 X's or 2 crosses or 2 tavs, 2 marks. That's what it is. It is a mark. That's what the mark is. It's extremely important to the rest of this video that you understand that ichthus will is telling on them. That's the whole point. They're telling you who they are without telling you. They got it from Second Temple Judaism. The word that they're telling you that will translates into, that it's a symbol or a code, it's a secret code, and it's ichthus, it's found in this Jewish fairy tale book, in book 8, from verse 216 onward, where it appears that a Second Temple Jew stopped writing it and a 3rd century Christian began writing it. What I'm telling you is it's probably the same group. And it's a symbol for them to see where they just kind of changed names. That's what this boils down to. It's a secret code word for them. That's what ichthus means. Any of you guys still calling that like the Jesus will or any of that, that's blasphemy. Now that you've been shown the truth and you've shown where it comes from, the word ichthus again is found in a Doctrine of Demons, literally, book of fairy tales from Greek, Roman, and Jewish tradition. This is going to be an update for the video The Second Beast. I posted this video originally up in February of 2022, the very beginning of this year. I posted it up a few weeks before the war in Russia started. I'm updating this video because this video is so important for you guys to patiently watch and see what's actually going on here, so you will not be fooled after next April. The thing with the X that you're seeing, it's the thing he hates. It's the doctrine of the Nicolaitan. We were recently in Sardis, and this is what we discovered in Sardis. Sardis is the home of one of the largest synagogues, or I guess the largest synagogue that was in the Roman world at that time in the diaspora. Yeah. And what you're looking at on the floor right there, that X or that cross, yeah, that's all over the floor of that synagogue there. This X that you're looking at on the side right here, or cross, depending on how you want to see it, this, is on a wall here in Antalya. According to a woman who runs the website Following Hadrian, this cross was put there during the Crusades. So it's a continued on thing. What you're looking at here on the floor, predates Christianity, predates the Byzantine era, according to my sources. That is 3rd century, so it would be like 200s was when the synagogue apparently was finished or completed in Sardis. And it's very interesting because God's Bible tells us the truth, and the messages in the book of Revelation were there for a reason. When we were here in Sardis and we looked at this, what kept coming to my mind was this: what Jesus Christ warned about. You can't serve God and the wallet. What Paul said, the Apostle Paul told us, the love of money is the root of all evil. Well, that's exactly what we found in Sardis. Sardis was the home of what we would call modern currency. It's where modern currency was first invented. And it was interesting that there you had the biggest synagogue in the diaspora we found. And it was really interesting that we noticed these crosses, or these X's, because they have a meaning. And this is what it means. That X has a very long history going back to Egypt. If any of you have followed this channel in the past, you'll know, periodically we'll show you, something like this. We try to make a point here and show you that, it's got a very old Egyptian meaning, Essentially, it had to do with Pharaoh's godship or rulership over, Egypt there, and that this is, what that X actually means, It started out there, and you see Phoenician here, by the way. Phoenicians are Canaanites. That's who the Phoenicians are. We want you to understand that. When you hear Phoenician, that's the world's way of saying it, because they know the word Canaanite is loaded. So when you see the word Phoenician, just keep that in mind. Remember Canaanite in the Bible, i.e. they'll tell you all these things. The Phoenicians were so smart. They were traders. They're, alphabet, all this other stuff. Of course they were. That's civilization. That's who the Canaanites were. Paleo-Hebrew, this X, right? So here's what it actually is. As you can see right here, early Hebrew, middle Hebrew, late modern Hebrew. Here you'll see, it looks like a cross, because that's what it is. We're showing you this for a reason. The Bible is true. Just these things are the world. This is not Christianity. That X, it means a mark, a sign, a signal, a monument. It was always associated with the word mark, or this particular sign, a cross, a T, an X, the Hebrew letter for Tav, the last letter. I want to read you a little more clearly a description of what this is. This mark. Keep in mind, that's what we're talking about here, X. According to the Blue Letter Bible, it's a mark, a sign of exemption from judgment. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, a sign of exemption from judgment. So you put this on something and it's marked, not to be judged, right? See, a mark on the forehead, a sign of an exemption. It is written as an X, yeah? And a little lower we get, yeah? A sign in the form of a cross branded on the thigh or neck of horses and camels, whence the name letter Tav, which in the Phoenician, that's Canaanite, and on the coins of the Maccabees. And this is what we're bringing this up for. The love of money is the root of all evil. The coins of the Maccabees has the form of a cross. They're saying cross, but it's an X. That's exactly what it is. As you can see, right here, it's all around you. When you start looking, it's everywhere. It's an X. They're calling it a cross, or they'll call it a Greek cross. That's another way they'll describe it. It's all over Turkey here in these old places, and I've just showed you. It's on the floor of that old synagogue that predates the Byzantine era. It's sign in cuneiform, a mark subscribed instead of a name to a bill of complaint in Job 31:35. Out of the Ellicott's commentary for English readers, yeah? So in Ezekiel 9:4, King James Version, and the Lord said unto him, go through the midst of the city and through the midst of all Jerusalem, and set a mark upon the foreheads of the men that sigh and that cry for all the abominations that are done in the midst thereof. And the Lord said unto him, go through the midst of the city and through the midst of Jerusalem, and set a mark upon the foreheads of the men that sigh and cry for all the abominations that are done in the midst thereof. Yeah? Yep. So, according to the Ellicott's commentary for the English readers, set a mark upon the foreheads. The word for mark here is literally a towel. Yeah? I.e., it's that thing right there. It's a towel. That's what it is. That's what the mark is. That's what it always was. It's the Hebrew towel. Yeah? That word right there. That letter right there. The Hebrew word towel. Yeah? That is what's written for mark. That's what a mark is. I'm wanting you to understand this. This is what Jesus Christ and faith in God has shown us through just following Him into the truth wherever it leads you. This is what the truth is. The word for mark is literally tau. It's that X or a cross. It's a cross. It's an X. It's basically Pharaoh's crossed arms right there. That's what this boils down to, the love of money being the root of all evil. The last letter of the Hebrew alphabet. This in many of the ancient alphabets, and especially in that of use among the Hebrews up to this time and long retained upon their coins. That's the whole point. It's on their coins. Was in the form of a cross or X. Yeah? X or this, as you can see right here. X or a Greek cross, as they like to call it. It's not a Greek cross. It is a Jewish mark. That's what it was called. And when I say Jewish, it's Canaanite. It comes from the Egyptian crossed sticks. That's what it boils down to. That's where the history leads. Period. The love of money is the root of all evil. That's what the mark is. It is a cross. It's an X. Period. We're showing it to you. My wife Anna and I keep repeating this over and over again because we know it's true. This is not something that's come from our own imagination. This isn't something that we've schemed up ourselves. We're not delusional. We didn't make the things that we're pointing out to you with our hands. They were made by other people's. What we're pointing out to you is what Jesus Christ, the real Jesus Christ of the Bible, not the stuff they're telling you in the world is Jesus Christ, but the real Jesus Christ of the Bible, the real Son of God, that faith in Him, that I knew He was alive. I knew He rose from the dead. I knew He wasn't in my imagination and He wasn't in a painting, and so did my wife. She believes the same thing I do. We know that He left this earth because we know it was God as a man, and we know He died for us. He paid for us with His innocent life in the blood He shed on this earth to wash away all of our guilt. Period. this faith that we had in him, that we knew we were dead under the law. There was nobody ever on this earth born a natural birth from a mother and a father that ever could have fulfilled all of the law. Yeah, period. Even if they had tried their hardest, they couldn't have done it. Yeah. I'm bringing up the law concerning all of this because it has so much to do with these X's that you're staring at in the screen right now, and so much to do. This man right here, and you see the X app, and him and his buddy, Peter Thiel, and you see the X's that they're holding up in the cards all that time ago when they wanted to start PayPal. This is all related. As crazy as it seems, it's all related. Yeah. His name, by the way, yeah, it's interesting. Elon in Hebrew means oak tree, or it was a judge from the book of Judges. Yeah. So it's a name of a judge or somebody that judges. Yeah. And it's interesting because we're discussing the law here and what that X actually means. Yeah. To their religion. Yeah. And when I say their religion, I mean the religion of the Jews. The same religion that Paul talked about, he participated in himself. The same religion, yeah, that they made themselves with their own culture. That's not the truth. It's not what the God of the Bible ever said. This is stuff these people invented. They took the Bible and twisted it into something else. They took the scriptures that were given to them. They took all of the prophets and they twisted it into their phony religion that they've had. And that X has everything to do with it. The law, nobody was ever going to be saved under. The law wasn't given by God to be cruel. Any more than God ever said the evil stuff that the pagans around taught, that there's an afterlife. These wicked people, yeah, taught that there was an afterlife, and taught that if you didn't keep the law or weren't good under the law, good enough, that in the afterlife you were tormented for all of eternity. That was never what God was saying. That's the type of stuff that they're teaching there is what all of the pagans always taught. An afterlife version. It's the very type of stuff that God punished the children of Israel for at Baal Peor. Yeah, engaging with that kind of activity. Eating sacrifices of the dead, all this stuff. There's no afterlife. Yeah, that was the biggest fear, by the way, I found out to the Egyptians. It wasn't eternal torment in the afterlife. That they, I guess, could have dealt with. It was ceasing to exist intellectually in the afterlife. That was the greatest fear of the Egyptians, there being no afterlife. So you should think about that for a minute. That's maybe why God says, dust you came from, dust you'll return to. And, it's again the law of the jungle thing. Yeah. Well, when it killed Jesus Christ, when this world put him on that tree, a stake, whatever it was, that piece of wood that it hung him up on, and murdered him, and he allowed it to be done. It didn't realize what it had done. Yeah, by doing that, it had just took the life of somebody that God said couldn't die. That was the whole point. Yeah, if you had kept all the law, if you were not born under death or under any curse, yeah, this thing just overstepped its bounds, the spirit of this world, and it killed somebody who couldn't die. So by doing that, yeah, God rose him from the dead because God has to be true. And Satan, the natural mind, is a liar. Yeah, couldn't hold Jesus Christ in the grave. God rose him from the dead. And on top of that, because God said, yeah, he had done no wrong, right? His life was shed out on this earth. It was shed out in the blood. And that blood was innocent and had no sin in it. It had the spirit of life of Jesus Christ in it. That's the Spirit of God. That blood was innocent, and it paid for every last guilty thing every human being has ever done or thought on this earth, period. God said the only thing that he wouldn't forgive, Jesus Christ said would not be forgiven, was denying this by murdering your brother, i.e., lying about God and telling lies about the only living God in order to murder your brother. He said, God said, every other thing could be forgiven other than that. If you know the truth and you reject the truth and you do this because you hate the message and you hate who God is, because it means you have you can't do the evil things you're doing anymore to other people, i.e. your brother. As Paul said, we all come from the same blood. If you hate that message that bad, you hate God. You hate everything about God, and you would do exactly what he said you would do. You would do exactly what he warned those Pharisees about, blaspheming the Holy Ghost. You would lie about a good God, and you would tell people evil things about him just to turn around and use it to hold on to power. That's blasphemy of the Holy Ghost. That's what we don't want anybody. We don't want anybody fooled by this. The reason God hates that so much, the reason Jesus Christ said that's the only thing he couldn't forgive, is because what's about to happen to this whole world. The smart people, the ones that know what they've done, that will not repent, that apparently will not give up the power that they've got, they will blaspheme the Holy Ghost, and it'll lead to the death of every person that listens to them on this planet. And it's got everything to do with that X, that mark that you're looking at right there on the screen. The reason I'm bringing this up in connection to this second beast video and updating it here is because we are putting together, Anna and I are putting together some other videos, and this is by literally, just the mercy of God through Jesus Christ and his forgiveness for all of the things I've done, showing me and her as we go what's actually going on here. None of the stuff that we're showing you has come from our own intelligence. It's not. He told us to be wise as serpents and harmless as doves. We use what smarts we have in this world to know how to do things, but he leads us where we go. That's the whole point here. We've went on faith that God is true and that Jesus Christ was telling us the truth, that the Bible is true, and that he would show us everything we needed to know. And he's true. We're here to tell you he's led us to this, and what you're about to see in some of the later videos that we post here is everything from our part of the puzzle that we put together that you'll need. That's what this boils down to. As my wife likes to say, they did a lot of work trying to distort the message. They did a lot of work covering up the Gospels of what Jesus Christ was really saying. They did a lot of evil things to try to make you think that you didn't understand what you were reading in the Bible when it was very plain and very easy to understand. They done this on purpose. When I say they, I mean the world at large, the ones that make money off of stuff like this. Yeah. All the torment that we're going to have, all the torment in this world that we're going to have, it doesn't come from God. It comes from us. That's the whole point. It comes from the fallen world. It comes from the nature of fallen people. I had a conversation with somebody online a month or so back, and this person told me that God created the supernatural devil to tempt people and to basically to tempt people with lusts and money and all this other stuff. Think about what you're saying here when you say something like that. That X that you're looking at has a lot to do with that doctrine. And most people don't even realize that. Think about the evil thing that you're saying about a good God. That we have a God that would tempt us like this for all of eternity. Yeah? Try to trick us. And then wait for us in the underworld to burn you alive for all of eternity in an underworld that he said in the beginning wasn't there in the beginning of the Bible. But then later it is somehow. Think about that. What kind of God is that? That sounds like a God that either isn't telling you the truth or a God that changes his mind. I.e., it sounds like people. Because that's not what the Bible was ever saying. That's not who God is. God's eternal. And he doesn't change. He's the same today as he was back in the book, in the very beginning. When we see in the book of Genesis in the garden, it's the same God. He's a good God. We're evil. That's what I'm trying to put out to you guys. We've done the evil things. If God's a spirit, and he's eternal, and he has to live, and he knows all the evil things we've done. We're the ones that have hurt him. That's the whole point I'm trying to make you guys understand. Our spirits, our natural spirits of who we are, the evil things we've done, the evil things we've thought, all of these evil things, that's hurt God. It's hurt God's feelings. We're opposite of what he is, naturally, right? And he still loved us enough to try to save us any way he could, to tell us, if you'll just stop doing what you're doing, if you'll put faith in my words that I'm real, if you'll put faith in my lamb, if you'll put faith in me, that I could make a man, a real man, that I could come and do what none of you could ever do. The first two of you, the first people that were in a perfect world, a perfect creation with no sin, no death, no fear, none of that. They couldn't keep themselves from sinning in a perfect creation. God came into a fallen world as a man in the flesh and blood, and he did not use his power to save himself. He used it to do good things to bad people. That's the whole point. He helped people, that the ones that begged for it, he forgave. That's the whole point, and he offered himself up in the flesh and blood. He did what none of us could do. He never sinned. He resisted all the way to the tree. In a fallen world, think about that, with all of the temptations around them, all of the evil stuff of the devil, i.e. the natural world, the natural mind, all of these things that every human being has to go through. He went through them and more, and he resisted it all the way to the tree and died a perfect life offered up for us on the tree, just so he could free us from the prison that we were in, which was death and fear of death. These people with this freaking X, or cross, they didn't come and bring a message like that ever from the very beginning of them. They came bringing a conquering message, because this X that you're looking at, these people, what they are, what they were, they're right there in the book of Revelation. It's that thing that Jesus Christ hates. These are the Nicolaitans. That's what the Nicolaitan is. It's a conqueror. It's the person that conquers the common people. The very history of the cross, they'll tell you. One of the church fathers wrote that it's the sign that Constantine's seen up in the sky before the big battle. Under this sign, conquer. It's a joke. They know what it is, because it's got a very old, very Jewish, very second temple meaning. And that's what we're about to get into. The Bible is 100% true. Jesus Christ condemned everything with their evil Maccabean religion, period. That's what it is. It's a fake version of what the Bible actually said. This is the religion of the Jews. That's what it boils down to, the Maccabean thing. And this isn't an anti-Semite thing. Most of these people, most of these modern Jews, these Talmudists, they're just in a conflict with people calling themselves Christians. Most people calling themselves Christians that are involved in the church houses and believe the things that I'm about to show you, they're Jews. They're Second Temple Jews. They just don't realize it. And when I say they're Jews, I mean they're them who call themselves Jews, but do lie. It's Second Temple Judaism. That's exactly what it is. Book of Maccabees. That's what they're teaching. That's what they believe. So the conflict they have between the two is simply the other side won't accept that Jesus Christ died for them, right? And if you just accept that and you believe and do what we say and you get a baptism and you accept and you say the sinner's prayer and you come to the building with a cross on it instead of, the other place down the road, and you believe he'll resurrect you in the afterlife, then you get the kingdom, right? Again, that's the only conflict they have. Please, take some time, look into the material that I present you on my channel, all of it. It's my sincerest wish that if, I can hook you with this, that you'll look into some of the other stuff. I know some of it's a bit lengthy. It's lengthy because the lies have been, they've been covered up for so long. exposing it all, it's like pulling a thread out of, a shirt or something. It just doesn't stop. It's not going to stop until it all comes undone. So that's why the stuff seems so lengthy. But I'm challenging anybody that comes to this channel and hears this message to go look into it for yourself. Satan has his kingdom, and it's, the kings that are on this earth right now. They're ruling over it, and, they're always wanting to be, the one on top, one up each other, right? This is why Jesus warned people about not desiring to be first in his kingdom. If you're wanting to be first in his kingdom, you put yourself last. That's the contrast between Jesus's kingdom, God's kingdom, and Satan's kingdom. Satan's kingdom, there's always competition to be first, right? Disobedience. God sees the whole world spirit collectively, and he sees one big collective disobedient spirit that, he tells us in his Bible. That's what the devil is. That's what Satan is. It's the spirit of you guys disobeying me. Don't let anybody fool you about this. That's what it boils down to. So if you guys understand this, and you understand that it's men, and it's disobedient men specifically, the spirit of disobedience in these people, that collectively makes up what we call, or what the Bible calls, what God tells us is the enemy, Satan, then you'll understand what I'm about to show you, and why it's so scary, and why I'm so worried, and what this has to do with Elon Musk, Vladimir Putin, the United States, all the stuff I've shown you in my last videos. Well, here's why. Because if you guys are hard of hearing, or you've got problems seeing things, let me open your eyes here real quick.
Yep, there it is. Oh, sweet. Okay, that's cool. Here it comes. Sonic boom.
Something happened there. We're just standing by until we can acquire this. I see the moon. So there. There's the landing birds. Look at that. On the water. Oh! 2 simultaneous booster landings back at the LZs at the Cape. Look at that. Those are 10-story buildings returning back home.
Waiting for there's the engine. Slow it down, lights are deployed.
So I'm going to read you Revelation chapter 13. And I stood upon the sand of the sea, and I saw a beast rise up out of the sea. Having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power and his seat and his great authority. And I saw one of his heads as it were wounded unto death, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast. And they worshipped the dragon, which gave power unto the beast. And they worshipped the beast, saying, Who is like unto the beast, and who is able to make war with him? And there was given unto him a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies. And power was given unto him to continue for 42 months. And he opened his mouth in blasphemy against God, to blaspheme his name and his tabernacle and them that dwell in heaven. And it was given unto him to make war with the saints, and to overcome them. And power was given unto him over all kindreds and tongues and nations. And all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him, whose names are not written in the book of life of the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world. If any man have an ear, let him hear. He that leads into captivity shall go into captivity. He that kills with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and faith of the saints. And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb, and he spoke as a dragon. And he exercises all the power of the first beast before him, and he causes the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. And he does great wonders, so that he makes fire come down from heaven on earth in the sight of men.
Look at that. Those are
One more
10-story
time.
buildings we're talking
And
about.
he does great wonders, so that he makes fire come down from heaven on earth in the sight of men. What do you guys think that is? If you're waiting on some supernatural fire to come out of heaven, you've been fooled. You're waiting for the wrong person. You are still a prisoner, just like I was, to the devil, to this world, if that is what you're waiting for. The only fire that's going to come down from heaven supernaturally is when God destroys this earth for the last time. That's it. Because he has had enough. He did not make people to do what we are. He did not make people to be so evil. You go right back and look in the book of Genesis, chapter 6, the same chapter that your false prophets and false teachers have told all of us is concerning alien hybrids and Nephilim and all of that. That is not the reason God destroyed the earth. That was a consequence of what the problem was on the earth. You go look and you read it again carefully. And you read why God destroyed the earth. You know why he destroyed the earth? Because men's hearts, every last thought out of them, were nothing but evil. Period. When Jesus said it would be as the days of Noah, that's what he's talking about. And you don't need to do any more looking than YouTube or any of the other social networks to find this out for yourself. People are evil. All of us. There are none of us that are good. Period. That's why he destroyed the earth. And it tells you in Genesis, he destroyed it because it grieved his heart. God is love. And he destroyed this earth because man's hearts were so wicked. And he deceives them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the first beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth that they should make an image to the beast, which had the wound by a sword and did live. And he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. And he causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their forehead, and that no man might buy or sell, save that he had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. And here is wisdom. Let him that have understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. That first beast had 10 horns. You're already told what those 10 horns are. They're kings. So what would 2 more horns on this second beast be? It would be 2 more kings. But this is like a lamb. That means they're like saviors. They're coming. This is the false prophet coming as savior. And again, this one, I hope I'm right. This one, there's no doubt. This one, I'm hoping I'm right. And they speak as a dragon, or they speak as the devil. Well, they speak like the world. They're going to save you with their own hands. They're going to save you with the works of their own hands. They're going to save you he's going to save you here from China. This one's going to save you from Russia. This one's going to save the whole world from global tyranny, with their artificial intelligence and the things they've developed that will be used for warfare. This one's telling you he will save all of humanity by making us a multi-planet species and getting us off of Earth. He's going to save the world from all its problems. That's what this one says. This one's going to save you from global tyranny. And I've told you, and I've shown you what the number of the beast actually of George Washington. It's the number of Solomon. It's the number there on the Capitol building, and anybody, who wants to sit like George Washington did there for a while in control of the whole world, that is the number of the beast. That beast is the United States. That's what I'm trying to make you guys understand. It's not simply one person. It's collectively these 10 kings, these 10 horns, rolling over the rest of the beast, which is all of the disobedient people that made it and support it. And this image of the beast is global revolution. It's global liberation via the United States, via the U.S. Constitution. That's what the image of the beast will be. It will be a global constitution put out there by these 2 guys right here, with forces within the United States, and the rest of the world will go for it. They're all tired. COVID is part of it. This was the whole plan the whole time, to get all of the people across the planet to revolt, basically, against their leaders, because their leaders, they are tyrants, and the people have had it. This is all going to end in a global government modeled after the United States. That's what the image of the beast is. The image of the beast. How did you think this false prophet, these 2 horns, how, are they going to tell the whole world to make one image? Think about that for a minute. How would that be a statue? It's not a freaking statue. What they're saying is collectively, the whole world will do a collective Declaration of Independence, a global constitution. Libertarian, that's what these guys were behind developing. What? Friendly AI. Or as this one and his girlfriend said, love AI. Or the libertarian-based AI that will manage the whole world. Now, you heard it said that that image specifically said, and he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. A little later in the book of Revelation, we're told that these people that are killed by this beast, by the image of the beast specifically, that they're beheaded. That's what it says. They lose their heads. That's what this boils down to. So if they lose their heads, and it's the image of the beast, how do these 2 guys tie into this?
Well, I mean, I could really sort of wax on about the nature of money for hours because I played a significant role in creating PayPal.
Right.
And so my understanding of the money system at a fundamental level of how it actually works, the detailed mechanics of it, is, I think, there are very few people that understand it better than me. But
There's very few people that understand it better than him and better than Phil, the money system. Now are you understanding why it says right here, and he causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell save he that had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. They understand the banking system better than anybody. That's what he's telling you. The man has the ground floor of the development of smart AI behind his belt. Him and Phil. They're already tied into the U.S. government because these two people effectively are forces within the U.S. government. That's where all of their money came from. That's where all of their technology came from. And he's got the potential at least, for a global army. So how does this beast, this second beast, how does it kill everybody that doesn't obey it, that doesn't take the mark? How does it, with the life it was given, which is this smart AI, how does it force the rest of the world to do this? Well, let me show you. And I'm going to show you what the U.S. military has been using covertly, and more than likely what they have planned to deal with Russia, as well as plans to deal with people that don't go along with this new system eventually. In other words, people who might not be willing to participate with a global libertarian AI. Yeah. Let me show you what the eyes of so many have been, blind to. This is the Switchblade 300 kamikaze drone that the U.S. government, the U.S. military at least, has been using for years. From what I was able to figure out, they've been using it since at least 2012 in Afghanistan. The drones operate with their own little autonomous systems. You'll see.
The Switchblade 300, kamikaze drone or loitering munition made by AeroVironment, is a new drone that has been added to America's arsenal. However, according to sources, this suicide drone has been used covertly for years by the U.S. military in targeted killing operations in Afghanistan, Iraq, and Syria. The drones are inexpensive at $6,000 each and weighing just 5 pounds, including warhead, can be moved in a backpack and fly at a range of up to 7 miles to hit targets. 300 is designed to kill individuals who can perform image processing on their own, identify the target after matching it with the image stored in it, then autonomous hitting is possible. The killer drone glides too fast to be tracked by the naked eye. The battery-powered robot pops out of its launch tube, spreads its carbon wings and shoots into the sky. This deadly drone is hard to detect on radar, based on facial recognition or other computer magic, hunting down a target it has been programmed to attack.
So, you heard what it said there. This can be done with facial recognition, which is what the ultimate aim of all of this, I believe, is. So, once again, the smart AI managing the system and controlling swarms of, these anti-personnel drones, the smaller version of the big drones that would take out entire armored columns. That's what would be the police force of this new liberated world, right? Complete equality. If you've got SpaceX's platforms, to deliver drone armies anywhere in the world. You've got a smart AI to control it all. This is game over for any government anywhere, yeah, that thinks it would want, to possibly disobey, the United States government or whatever government's in control of this technology, whatever person. Nevertheless, with the AI managing it all, the AI is responsible for killing you. At the end of the day, the AI is going to be the one who decides. It's not going to distinguish, right? It's going to be kind of like God, right? It won't take into account who you are as a person. What does it say, in the Bible? God tells us God's not a respecter of individuals, right? He treats us all pretty much the same, right? We all have access to life through his son, through Jesus Christ, or we can die. He gives the call out to everybody the same, right? Well, this AI, see, it would kind of operate on the same principle, apparently. Like, it's not going to distinguish, between a rich person or a poor person. That's what God's Bible's told us. It causes all, small and great, rich and poor, free and bound, right, to receive this mark. Yeah? So it doesn't care who you are. You're going to have to obey it ultimately, which is, we're told, subordinate to that second beast, which is subordinate and doing all of these satanic false miracles in the sight of the first beast, which is the United States, or what will be this new United States, this global revolution of liberty. Yeah? That's what this all boils down to. This is what the mark of the beast was all coming down to right here. They were never going to cut your heads off with guillotines. That's so 18th century. All of the lies that have been told over the years about that by people in the conspiracy fields, it really didn't help things because it caused people to look the wrong direction. Yeah. Just like the false teachers and false prophets out there tell you to look for a supernatural bad guy, they tell you a supernatural fallen angel coming down from space, named Satan or Lucifer, with a bunch of, supernatural baddies with them that are going to take over the whole world and cause the whole world, blah, blah, blah. And they'll do all these like miracles, guys, that's not true. Yeah. Satan coming down from space will be when humanity, human beings, are finally kicked out, when the governments of this world are kicked out of space or kicked out of the air. It's when they lose their dominance. That's what Satan getting cast down to the earth is. It's not fallen angels. The miracles that Satan does, these miracles, they're all done with the hands of human beings. They're not done any other way. Satan and man are two in the same thing. Yeah? Satan is just disobedient people. That's what its spirit is. That's all it is. All it can do is stuff like this. All it can do is lie. All it can do is murder. That's the only power it has. It has no power to give life. Because life, ultimately, the life force is a spirit. That comes from the one and only God, the one and only supernatural God. That comes from the one and only Son of God, the Word of God, Jesus Christ of Nazareth. There's no competition between him and somebody else. You've been told a lie. You're not going to get resurrected in an underworld afterlife. His gift is resurrected from this earth alive.